There we go. All right, we are up and running. I'm sorry about that hiccup there. I was about to start broadcasting and suddenly discovered that Mevo had reverted to a previous title, so I'm sorry about that. All right, ready to go. My name's Dan. Thank you for joining me today. I'm doing the ninth and final, and in some ways, even though I'm painting very small areas, in some ways, this could be considered the most critical. This is comparable in my normal representational paintings. What I'm doing today, this is comparable to the final edit layer that I talk much about on my regular, because abstract painting is not my norm, although, as I say often, I enjoy it quite much. And it's been a couple of years since I did a blast of abstracts. So indeed, that is what I'm doing the last couple of weeks. Almost all my abstracts are done en masse. They're done all at once, an assembly line process. It's just a strange practice I have. All right, let's get official. This is Daily Art Adventure number 971. Hopefully sound and everything is okay, but I'm not broadcasting on Facebook today because of the technical problems. So 971. The last phase, woohoo! So it turns out, when I was doing the very first layers of this series, I was guessing how many layers it would end up being. Well, it turns out the answer is 9. And I think the most common number I said was 8 or 10. So I ended up right in the middle, because I really didn't know. Could be, the next time I do a series of abstract, it could easily be 7, 8, 10, 12, 13. Who knows? There's no counting. So I'm glad to be on the final phase. And in just a minute here, I'm going to start talking literally. I'm going to try to talk about, as much as possible, every stroke that I make, okay? Because here at the end of this process, where I am manipulating or managing the principles of design the most intensely. But before I do that, let me show you. I've already done one painting. I'm going from the top down now, so I'm doing a countdown. Let me show painting number 20 is finished. Let me show it to you. And sometime tomorrow, I will photograph all of these well, and post them on my Facebook page. Now, if some of you are hardcore anti-Facebookers, then you can still send me an email. And again, how am I going to find your email? Good grief, it's my job. It's my job to be a full-time professional artist who can be found. So if you can't find my email, all you need to know about me is that I'm an artist and my name's Dan Nelson. As I said yesterday, there is one other. He does male nude photography. That's not me. I'm the other Dan Nelson. I'm more famous than him, judging by Google. Okay. So anyway, you can find my email address. Don't ask me what it is. Just look it up and find me. That had a bit of an attitude edge to it, didn't it? You can tell I'm getting a little burned out on working with the public. I couldn't find your phone number. Anyway, okay, let's get off being snarky. Let's go back to being nice, Dan Nelson. So the auction will start, I expect tomorrow. At least by, not morning, but midday. Hey, while I've got this painting up, I just saw another thing that I want to do to this painting. I want to add a little bit slightly lighter purple right here to this stroke. Well, that's more than slightly lighter, that's considerably lighter, but same effect. There we go. And as I said, in a minute, I'll tell you what made me do that. But I'm not going to do that now. This one, I think now is finished. If you buy painting number 20, and as you can see, they'll all be numbered. You get 2 paintings for the price of 1, and you get both of these. My idea is, if you're really clever, you can design a frame that you can put the painting in both ways. Otherwise, you can just put up whichever one you like better and leave it that way forever. These are already photographed, so I don't think I'll be making many changes, but I am going to varnish so the color will pop a little bit more and they'll be glossy. I prefer glossy paintings because the color pops. All right, so that's painting number 20, all finished. And let's get back to work now on number 19. So I do hope, as you know, I am a teacher, and I do hope that some aspiring young, quote unquote young, that some aspiring abstract painters will in fact watch this video here today, because I expect it to be very didactic. I've already done some work on this. And I like this painting quite well. I shouldn't say that because I'm trying to sell them. First of all, I love them all. I like them all. I believe this is my strongest set of abstracts that I've ever done, which is encouraging because that suggests to me that I am indeed growing as an artist. And where was I? I think, by the way, let me show you real quickly my setup here. I have my normal paint palette and then a butcher tray because I know I'm going to be mixing a lot of colors over and over and over. And then I have brushes. Can you see the brushes there? Whoops, not quite. Yeah, there you go. Already mixed up with colors on them. All right, so the idea is I'm going to be using, similar colors over and over and over as I go through 20 paintings. And I don't want to be cleaning a ton of brushes in between each color and so on. So I have lots of room to mix. All right, the last thing I was doing on this painting was I'd mixed up a nice clean orange. And first of all, the composition is real obvious here. Boom. Busy area, often called focal point. My favorite language might be high energy zone, right here, okay? Slight weakness is that the high energy zone is right smack dab in the middle of the painting. That would be a disaster were it not for the fact that the high energy zone is stretched. First of all, it's stretched up here and down here. So it's a long line of energy, okay? So that helps a little bit, but it's still right in the center. What am I going to do? Easy. I've got, in this context, this hard edge vertical stroke is extremely important. And if you've been watching me, that's what I did on phase 8. That was the last thing I put in. And this is also very important. So this construction right here pulls a lot of energy whoom, from here. So in a sense, it either competes with that or it teams up with that, so that now we're not irritated by the fact that this is right in the middle. First of all, this creates like a secondary frame, and this high energy area is perfectly located in the secondary frame. Or on the other hand, if you consider the whole frame, this again creates a lot of energy and pulls. So now, if you could almost say the center of energy in this painting is right about here, which is a pretty perfect location, right? Not here, but here, because these either they team up or they compete, whichever, but that's all right. I'm talking too much. Now, I have clean orange on my brushes, and watch, I'm going to put a little bit of clean orange on top of dirty orange. Most of the colors that I'll do in this last 9th layer will be similar to what I just did. That is to say, I'll be doing a cleaner, lighter, brighter version on my brush of what's already there on the canvas. Okay, that's the most common trick, if you will, that I'll be playing in this final layer. And by the way, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. I'm increasing the energy, and again, that's my favorite of all the principles of design, probably the concept of levels of energy is probably my number one working principle, working concept when I'm doing the painting. So I'm adding energy, and now you know exactly why. Why am I adding energy down here? Because this needs to be pulled this way. The energy, the center of gravity of this painting needs to be pulled off center. And I've accomplished that very well right there. I already did some other things in this painting before you tuned in. Last step, last stage, last phase here. Hello, Chandam Ram. Thank you very much. Good to have you with us. In most cases, the very last thing that I'll do on my paintings will be a warm light. Sometimes it'll be a cool light, but not here. So I've just mixed up titanium white with a tiny bit of yellow. I don't know which yellow, a mixture of yellows probably, just a hodgepodge. And one of the things, also one of the final things that it will probably do on most of these paintings is I'll be doing some palette knife painting. Of course, I'm calling this in my hand, I'm calling it a palette knife. It's actually a hardware builder's tool. That's nice. Okay, like a little explanation. Okay, in fact, some other broader explanation. Why am I doing what I'm doing? At the moment, before I started this last layer, virtually every color on my canvas is transparent or has a transparent glaze on top of it. That's because transparent colors are more interesting, more complex than opaque colors. Okay, so virtually everything on my canvas is transparent. Therefore, I have a big opportunity open to me, because now I can apply some opaque colors. And if you're paying attention, one of you should say to me, well, wait a minute. You just told us that transparent colors were more interesting or more beautiful than opaque colors. So how come you're putting on opaque colors? So glad you asked that question. You old timers, you've heard this. You can answer that question for me. But for those who might not be so familiar with my teaching, so glad you asked that question. Why am I putting opaque? And it's going to finish. It's going to stay opaque too. I'm not going to do anything transparent on top of this stuff. The answer is the principle of variety trumps, has the last word, trumps nearly every other principle in the principles of design. In other words, variety is, what's another way to say that? The highest, one of the highest values. That tool is not working very well. I have some other stuff here. Where is it? Here we go. So, precisely because the whole painting is transparent, that means that adding some highlights, if you will, some accents of opaque color gives me, bam, gives me variety. Da, 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 da. One of the most valuable things you can put into a painting. So that's one answer. Then I'm also, as you saw a minute ago, using blades or flat things, what I called a palette knife. What's the reason for that? Again, so glad you asked, but by now you should actually know the answer, right? The great majority of colors, paints on this canvas right now are applied with a brush. So they have a brushy technique, you know, the brushy texture, right? So by applying paint, thick paint with a blade, what am I achieving? Variety. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You already knew the answer to that, didn't you? So that I'm doing two things to achieve variety. One, of literally a variety of texture, the mirror smooth finish that you can achieve with a palette knife, if you will, and the variation of opaque color, opaque paint. All right, so whew, that took a while, didn't it? Now, one of the other things that I'm doing in this final layer, hello, Redina. Redina, I found your question and was quite mystified myself because I had published all 20 images on Facebook. And then I discovered only the last 4, 17 through 20. I just discovered that yesterday, much to my chagrin, and much to my, I have anger issues, okay? I hope I'm kidding, but I'm tempted to get angry like everybody else. Because I posted, I do solemnly swear, I posted all 20 images. It took me many minutes. It was a royal pain in the caboose, and I did it, and then come to find out that none of them showed up. So it's just some of the so Redina, yeah, don't worry about it. They will all be there sometime tomorrow, okay? Just relax, they will all be there. And first of all, it was only the backside, right? What we're talking about now is tomorrow, what image will be on Facebook, essentially 40 paintings. Painting number 1, front and back. Painting number 2, front and back. Painting number 3, front. That's what you'll find on Facebook tomorrow. All right? So it didn't matter that much that the backside messed up. All right, so another thing that I am doing in this final layer, I started to say, is I'm covering up any, no, not any, because that would, you'd get yourself into you could paint forever. You could paint freaking forever. And many of you, times, you don't know when to quit. All right, so you can't just keep going forever and ever. you have to quit. But I am looking for any marks that aren't pleasant, and I can actually describe those for you. For the most, at least in this series of paintings, but I think it's fairly universal in all artwork. Marks that look immature, that doesn't help you much, does it? Marks that look accidental and smudgy. Accidental and smudgy are generally not pleasant marks. So I'm covering over them. And I'm covering, another way to put that, I'm actually covering, and this may be germane only to this series of paintings. They take on a style of their own, and on the whole, these are fairly hard-edged and clean paintings. That doesn't mean that in a year or two, when I do a bunch of abstracts, they might not be gloomy and dark and smudgy. They could be, and beautiful, by the way. But for right now, I'm covering up stuff, as I said, covering up stuff that is kind of smudgy and dirty. Not all of it, of course. That would take forever, and I'd never finish. I'd be like some of you who would say to me, well, I've been working on this abstract painting for 4 weeks. Note to beginners, working on an abstract painting for 4 weeks. Anyway, never mind. No, you're doing something wrong. In my humble opinion, which ain't so humble, if you're spending 4 weeks on an abstract painting, you're doing something wrong. In my opinion. I'm not the only one that has an opinion, by the way, on that subject. But all right. Again, I started doing the last thing, and then I got distracted too, which is light highlight. So I'm mixing up again. Let me give you a repeat for you. Again, you you regulars, you hear this all the time. The human eye gets a kick out of seeing light paint on top of dark paint. The human eye does not get so much of a kick out of seeing dark paint on top of light paint. Now, in that whole statement there, I'm really referring primarily to opaque colors. So none of what I just said refers to watercolor, okay? I'm a watercolorist. I understand watercolor. Everything I just said does not apply. Nothing that I said just then applies. All right, I think I'm done. I bumped the reds up. Oh, and the little bits of blue before you guys got here. And so that's already done. I am ready to sign this thing. And I really do hate to waste y'all's time watching me sign paintings, but the only alternative is either to not sign them or to come back much later and sign them all later. And I don't want to do that. I want to sign them now. So sorry about wasting your time, sort of. Hang on, I want to get so you can, at least you can see me. I've lectured, I've ranted about signatures many times over the years, so I hate to do it again. But while I'm doing it, I might as well tell you, number one, legible. Many good painters, even good painters, let alone early journey painters, in my opinion, really blow it in the signature. Number one mistake they're making, the number one mistake you're making, probably, is you're trying to, let me show you, you're trying to do your signature with a bristle brush. That's ridiculous. No, get a good red sable brush, Winsor Newton Series 7. Don't even waste your time buying off-brand seconds. Many other companies many other brush manufacturers have tried to match the industry standard. And in my opinion, none have really even come close. So don't even mess with it. Just buy a Winsor Newton Series 7. This is a size 2. A little bit on the large side, but I like it. All right. And as you can see, take your time. There's no rule that says you have to do your signature in one stroke. I've heard some teachers say that, by the way. I've heard some, I'm sorry, mentally retarded teacher say that you're supposed to do your signature with one stroke. I mean, that's just absurd beyond description. Anyway, take your time, do it right, do it so people can read it, right? While I'm ranting, let me give you a little bit more. And listen to me, you beginners. Listen, you ignore me at your peril. Do not, I repeat, do not use your initials. Unless, of course, everybody, if your name is JR, and that's what everybody calls you, then of course you can call yourself JR. That's how you sign it. But no, if your name is John Randolph, and that's what everybody calls you, that's what you sign it. I will tell you, and this is a dirty little secret, and I'm glad I get to tell you, you beginners, when I see somebody painting, when I see a painting who's got initials on it, to me, that screams out loud. I'm a beginner. I'm no good. I have no respect for my work. Forgive me for breathing. I'm going to exit this planet as quickly as I can and give all my good oxygen to somebody who deserves it. That's what initials say. Now, I know why people do initials. It's not just because they have a massive inferiority complex. They also do it because their signature is butt ugly. And at least 3 letters ugly is better than 14 letters ugly. And it's ugly because you're using a stupid brush like this. I'm really being really mean. All right, but doggone, if you're a beginner and you're ignoring me, you're stupid. If you're ignoring me right now and you're a beginner, believe me, if I see your painting and it's got initials, I'm gonna go Bush League, amateur, wannabe, loser artist, no good artist. I promise, that is what I think. Actually, I shake my head and go, oh, they're acting like a no good artist, even if they are good. All right, see, it came out anyway. All right, painting number 18. I like it really well, so I don't want to screw it up. The composition is good. It's pretty similar to number 19, isn't it? Although maybe a little bit less, the center of energy is more perfectly placed on this one. I don't have to pull it or anything like that on this one. So I don't think it needs any major corrections. Painting number 20, by the way, that I did without you, so far is the one that needed the most tweaking, the most manipulating. And of course, I could sign this and say I'm done. Of course, that's always an option. But what would I be missing? Well, there's no opaque colors, so I'm missing an opportunity for variety. I'm going to start with this green area. So I'll pick up my brush that's already got green on it, and I'm going to try to match that right there. So color mixing, traditional, plain old-fashioned color matching, just like many of you do if you paint, especially if you paint in a traditional manner. And I'm going to, let me think, so I can, of course, the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. The human eye gets a kick out of seeing light color on top of dark color, not the other way around. And of course, you know, don't you? You know, I put it that way. I say the human eye because I'm trying to convey to you. I'm doing a preventative. I'm doing a, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to shut the gate on many of you who would say, well, that's your opinion. Well, yeah, of course it is my opinion, but it's my opinion because it's true. It's not my opinion because it's my opinion. And that attitude, by the way, that I just mocked with that tone of voice, I'm actually coming against a myth in the world of art. I should do a paper sometime, publish it. I may have done this already, but I forget. On the myths, the widespread myths in the art world, myths about art. I mean, not held by artists necessarily, but things that all people think are true. Like one is, and I ranted about this, I think just yesterday, one of those myths is that non-artists believe, and many artists do as well, especially if they have a degree in art, they believe that art is about self-expression, that's the essence, that's the purpose, that's the reason for art is for the artist to express himself. And of course, you've heard me, probably you've heard me rant against that many times. Pure poppycock, and has ruined many good artists in the 20th century, or many who could have been good artists, but they were not good artists because they were taught that art was about, the purpose of art is to express oneself. And you could say to me, well, what's wrong with expressing yourself? What about all the artists who in fact disagree with you, who do in fact express themselves through art? Well, of course that's their prerogative. Of course, many people can do whatever they want with their art. I would simply say the obvious. They're doing lousy art. They're doing communication, right? If they're expressing themselves, they're communicating. And if they're communicating, what are they? Are they an artist or are they a communicator? Well, by their own admission, they are a communicator. So I'm taking them at their word and say, okay, you're a communicator. Nothing wrong with being a communicator. I'm a communicator too. But when I'm doing art, I'm not being a communicator, I'm being an artist. Did you follow that? They say art is communication. So I say, okay, so when you're communicating through your art, what are you? Are you an artist or a communicator? And if they were honest, they would say, no, I'm a communicator. I say, okay, true. Therefore, stop calling yourself an artist when you're engaged in the act of communication. Of course, the most common communication is self-expression. You know. And talk about somebody who deserved to express himself would be Vincent van Gogh. You know, experienced a lot of hard knocks in life. Doggone it, he had a right to express himself. But he didn't. That's not what he did. He created amazing paintings. Now his essence is reflected in his paintings. See, that's a different story. My essence is reflected in my paintings. But I don't step up to a canvas to slap forehead in order to express myself. Quite the contrary. I'm trying to create, and here this the bad word in the academy. I'm trying to create beautiful paintings. And most of the time I do so. And that's why so many other people's paintings that come out of the university, as I did, I managed to come out. The difference between me and them, I actually came out. My paintings are beautiful and theirs are but ugly. And you wonder why. Well, it's because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create ugly paintings. Anyway, there we go. Back to that same old rant. I told you I was going to try to talk about why I'm doing each stroke, and I've gotten way off that. All right. I've done contrast by using a palette knife, and I've done lighter opaque stuff, so variety. Now, I'm looking for a palette knife that works well. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what I'm doing then right now, and I'm doing quite a bit of this in this series of paintings. I'm trying to mix up a color that is very close to what's already on the canvas. And of course, I keep calling it canvas, you understand. Just a tradition, so you know what I'm talking about. It's actually a panel, but I'm trying to put a color slightly lighter, right? Because slightly darker is unpleasant to the human eye. So why am I doing slightly? Slightly, the key word there is slight. Why am I putting on a color that is slightly lighter than what's already there? One way to describe this is because the human eye gets a kick out of subtlety. Another way to put that is the human eye gets a kick out of being mildly deceived. How's that for counterintuitive? The human eye gets a kick out of being tricked, at least momentarily. The human eye likes to walk up to a painting and say, oh, that area right there is all one color. And then on second glance go, oh, no, it's not all one color. It's actually two different colors, or three or four, or whatever, right? And with the second eye-opening, oh, we experience, I believe, authentic aesthetic pleasure. Now, who knows? You know what makes up aesthetic pleasure is a question of the ages. But nonetheless, that's what I know, and that's part of what makes me operate. I sure hope I had Indian yellow in here. I know I went upstairs yesterday. There it is. Whew. Boy, I didn't want to run off and leave you guys again. Here, let me show you my paint drawer since I'm talking about it here for a minute. This is my oil paint drawer, and it's got dividers in it, and it's supposed to go from purple through the rainbow to ultramarine and then browns, but it's not quite large enough, as you can see, and I don't have quite enough separate sections. So, but I couldn't fit, if I put more sections in it, each section would be even smaller. So anyway, it's a compromise. It helps me a little bit. Yes, I built all those dividers, of course. That's a good reflection of my kooky personality. All right. These two drawers are filled with acrylics. This drawer is filled with tools, and all 12 drawers in that tabaret, which, as you can see, is an antique apothecary file. That means back 100 years ago, the pharmacist, the local pharmacist, called an apothecary at the time. These are the file drawers where he kept notes on all, or she kept notes on all his or her patients. So that the piece of furniture has come down to us named an apothecary. That's the name. And I just repaired it and refinished it just a couple months ago. That was a big job. So you saw me a minute ago wiping off my hand with, it had paint on it. So I am going to use studio wipe to get some of that possibly toxic stuff off my skin. The most toxic thing I'm using here, by the way, is the Liquin. And I'm assuming most of you know Liquin Original, so it's a gel, so I don't have to use a cup. It stays put in a little pile, more or less. Stays put on your palette. All my other colors, I don't use. I have no cobalts and haven't for years. For 10 years, I haven't used a cobalt or or cadmium. All right, let's go back to painting here. The last thing I'm going to do is hit some of the highlights, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. There's this area right here. Let me zoom in as close as I can. There we go. I would call that a befuddled, unpleasant area. The kind of maroonish swoosh. It would be okay, except that it's right in the middle of this light area. Anyway, that to me is not a great mark. So I'm going to do some more. I'm going to mix colors now over here on my butcher tray. I'm going to try to match that color right there. Brownish, and I'm not, sometimes I'll tell you what color I'm mixing up, but I'm always afraid to do that because I know that many art students, when I start telling you recipes, you scramble for your notebook and say, oh, got to write this down. And no. Learn how to paint by eye. Don't paint by it. Like a real cook, a real chef maybe. A real cook cooks by a cookbook. But a real chef doesn't paint by cookbook. He or she paints by taste, right? Now he or she, if they're a good chef, they have a pretty darn good idea, what this dash of cumin is going to do to their stew. So that they are painting by experience, but they're not painting primarily by recipe. They're painting, and that's the way you need to paint, not by recipe. Every once in a while, I do give a recipe. Okay, so I just added quite a bit of energy there, and it covered up mostly, not entirely. See, a little bit of smudgy underneath still shows through, and I like that. I like how I cut away. This, by the way, is, for what it's worth, this is classic Dan Nelsonism, whereas I have a line already on the canvas, and then I paint up to both sides of the line with opaque paint, and now that line appears to be in the painting instead of on the painting. That's best I can explain. Right? And I'm just pointing that out to say, so guilty as charged. You do not need to do that. That's just a, almost, you could say, an extreme case of Dan Nelsonism. That's just the way I'm. All right. Likewise, I think I want this. Again, going to match that color a little bit. Take the same color I've just been using. Make it a little bit more orange. Oh, it's too much more orange. Darn it, hate it when that happens. And a little bit lighter. I want that little mark right there. I think would be fun, quote unquote. Would be fun if it were lighter. And it's a little bit smudgy and dirty. Hang on, I'm having a hard time matching the color. Oh, there's the culprit. Okay, so what just happened is I dipped my brush in a pile of orange over here. I forget what orange it is. I should take note of it. And come to find out that particular pile of orange is really hot. Do you know what I mean by that? Really heavy pigment load. A little bit goes a long way. And I say that just so that you all, beginners, if you are a beginner, early journey painter, I usually call you. I know that many of you think when you do that, you get disgusted with yourself. Say, doggone it. I just was mixing color and then I messed up. And you think that maybe that only happens to you. That's ridiculous. It happens to everybody, okay? Welcome to the human race. Color mixing, always. All right, I like that. And again, added just a little bit of energy, boom, by hard edges. And I did that Dan Nelson thing again, where I painted around this black line, right? Okay, I think the last thing I'm going to do on this painting is, I'm running out of work surfaces, by the way. can I do? What can I do? Here we go. I have a piece of canvas here. I'm going to drape this over my, I have a nice, padded stool. You know what I mean? It's like a tall chair, but it's upholstered, so I don't want to get paint on it. So I'm going to drape this canvas so I can start putting painty stuff on top of that. Make it a work surface for my tools. All right. Y'all didn't need to hear that, but I had to say something while I was doing it. I just changed my mind. Before I do the whites or the lights, there's some hints of yellow right there. And you regulars know that I have a strange love-hate relationship with bright light, cool, chartreuse-ish yellow. And speaking of chartreuse, that yellow just got contaminated by some green, so there's no way I can get ungreen that yellow that's on my never use your teeth. I feel obligated to say that every time I use my teeth, just so that one of you can't say you use your teeth and you break your teeth and you say, well, Dan Nelson did it. There you go. Yeah, but Dan Nelson also told you not to do it, so there, I'm safe. I covered my butt. You can't sue me now. I'm being quite stupid. All right, I'm mixing up a very cool, very clean, pure yellow. And yellow, bright like this, bright yellow is not a part of my normal vocabulary. I kind of have to force myself to use it. Having forced myself, I'm usually glad that I did. But I really have to think about it. I do think, by the way, that many other artists, beginner artists in particular, early journey artists, really do use a cool, bright yellow way too much. Let me go on that for a minute, because this is in fact I would think, like, if I made a list, which I should probably try to do, of most common mistakes that I see early journey painters making, a good candidate for that list would be that many early journey painters misunderstand yellow. It's real simple. They have been, by the way, I just intentionally made a smudgy mark there. So I'm not always against smudginess. If you've taken a painting class, even in high school or whatever, you were told that yellow is warm. And I apologize to you for the miscommunication that your art teacher gave to you. She should have said, some yellows are warm, or yellows are technically warm, but not necessarily actually warm. All right. Now I'm ready to go to my final light highlights. Because, as a matter of fact, lemon yellow, Hansa yellow, cad yellow light, all of those yellows, they are so bright, and it's partly a caprice of our modern paint manufacturing technology, that the paint manufacturers have the capacity to make colors, to create colors, because of technology, that almost don't exist in nature. And Hansa yellow, lemon yellow, cad yellow light is one of those colors that, I'm using my words carefully, almost doesn't exist in nature. And those colors are so bright and light as a yellow. They actually, in your eyeball, even though they're technically yellow, next to most other colors, warmer colors, they tend to tip over into the green spectrum. So here's just a rule of thumb. I tell my painting students, like if I've got a 2 or 3 day painting class, especially if there's a lot of early journey painters, listen to me. If you have those yellow tubes of paint, and if you organize your paint box by color, you pick up that yellow tube of paint and put it in the green section of your paint box until you really are able to savvy colors at a deep level, where you're not just going by, well, they said it was warm or something like that, where you really are understanding it at a gut level, seeing it. Until that day, you put Hansa yellow, lemon yellow, cad yellow light in the green category. If you do that, you'll avoid hideous mistakes. The mistake is birthed out of the illusion, the impression that you have that all yellows are warm. All right. Whew. Just never know where I'm going to be going next, do you? Which rant is he going to get on next? My painting is on the verge of too busy. So I'm going to smudge out some of the dots that I just made. Isn't that something? I was probably talking too much. I think overdid it a little bit. Even this yellow, even while I was talking about yellow, I think I overdid that. All right, that's better. You might do well to notice the manner, so I'm using painting with rag now, the manner in which I am moving. I complained earlier about smudgy marks, and I find them very often not pleasant. Well, this is a way to wipe off color without making a smudge. And we'll do it firmly and so forth. All right, I think that's good. All right, I like that painting. Again, these will all be posted. That's number 18 front, and there's number 18 on the back. All right, moving right along. As you can probably tell, this phase of the painting process, even though I'm covering up, 5% of the canvas, quote unquote. By the way, I'm painting on gator board. It's kind of like industrial strength foam core. Lightweight, very solid, nice for painting on, and nice for shipping. All right, number 17. I like this one. I like this one quite well as well. Anybody saying anything today? Not much. Hello, Stein. Uncle, do I dream about changing my paint? The answer is yes. I do sometimes dream about a particular painting. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for saying. Love it. He's doing what I said. Some of you are going to say to me, wait, you just told us. I did to the last one. I think I'm going to start at kind of a funny place. I'm going to start with the accent color, which, okay, boy, this painting is it a warm or a cool painting? Whoa, that could be dangerous. Because you don't want a painting that's half and half. So clearly from here up is cool-ish and warmish, and the coolish is larger. I don't know the answer. I like the painting anyway, even though it seems to be breaking a rule. Okay, so an accent color, one of the prominent accent colors on this painting is red. But the red that's there, you can see is a little bit dirty, a little bit smudgy. And it's dirty, if for no other reason, it's dirty because it has a colored glaze, or plural, colored glazes on top of it, right? That's why it's dirty. So ain't no mystery how to get so dirty. Well, because I painted on top of it. So that gives me the open door to then come in. And sorry, Izzy, if I'm interrupting your schoolwork. I just mixed a little bit titanium white with that. That was nice. So it gives me the opportunity to practice this thing that I preach all the time, which is our eye gets a kick out of seeing slightly lighter on top of what is slightly darker. And again, the word slight there is really, really important. If it's a whole bunch lighter, it doesn't have the same effect. All right, let's see. Here's a funny, this curve, the edge of this light blue area that kind of curves, I'm finding not terribly fetching. So I'm going to find one of my blue brushes here. I'm going to try to mix up that color. I'm going to try to match that color. Boy, I'm already, I put out 10 piles of titanium white before I started painting this morning, and they're already all used up. So here in the final stage of my painting process, when I'm doing what I normally call final edit, which is light opaque highlights, I'm painting like most of you. I'm painting like a traditional 20th century, let me make that clear, a traditional 20th century painter, in that I'm painting opaquely. I'm painting in an opaque manner with opaque colors by mixing colors on my palette. And the reason I'm emphasizing that it's 20th century tradition is that the 20th century is, if you will, famous for eschewing, for dissing transparent colors. And there's a whole reason. But now, how close am I? Oh, very good. By the way, that was a practice stroke. I don't like it, so I'm going to take it off. Again, some classic Dan Nelson marks here, where there was skinny black lines on the painting, and I just painted around them with opaque paint. Get it? Does that make sense? I'm using cardboard. There's a name for this. Is it called pasteboard? There's an old-fashioned name for this kind of cardboard, but it's the kind that comes, for me as an artist, it's the kind that comes, you know, on the back of a pad of drawing paper, sketching paper, newsprint pad, or whatever. It's that brownish stuff. Makes a good substitute, if you will, for palette knife, for doing whatever kind of edge you want to call that. And I just slapped them on my cutting board and cut a whole bunch of them, just all different shapes. I'll use them for a while, and then I'll throw them out. What I'm doing now is operating on that principle that our eyes enjoy being fooled, tricked, lied to. Another way to say that is our eyes enjoy subtlety. So at first quick glance, this whole blue section is interpreted by your brain as one color. Then with closer examination, you look a second time and go, oh, wait a minute, it's not one color. It's light blue, it's slightly lighter on top of slightly darker. So if this, what I just put on here was way different from what was here, that effect would be completely non-existent, right? That wouldn't happen. And that creates, you know, like this light on top of that, there's no confusion. Nobody thinks that this, and this are all one shape, right? No, there's three shapes, right? So there's a different aesthetic happening here. This is contrast, which is, of course, high energy. This is low energy. And a good way to describe good painting is we have this tension and balance between high energy and low energy. All right, I'm looking for now a brush that has brown paint on it. I'm going to mix up. Just saw something right here. Right here. That kind of burgundy. You can see how it got there. It was part of an earlier mark, early in the painting process. Then part of it got painted over red. In fact, now that I'm looking, I'm going to extend it beyond this. There's a little bump in the paint. I want to extend it beyond that. There we go. Often I find this kind of thing not terribly fetching, okay? Just not all that attractive. It's hard to just, you know, I mean, it's really weird to try to describe, so what's attractive, smarty pants, you know? There is a lot of subjectivity. There's no doubt there is a lot of subjectivity, but it's my job as an experienced and getting better artist, it's my job to say the heck with subjectivity. I want to know how most human beings will respond to this or that when they see it, right? It's a cop-out. It's a giant. Did I say a while ago, I started saying I was going to make a list of myths, and then I think I got distracted. One myth is that art is about self-expression. Here's another myth. Are you ready? Put on your seatbelt. I'm about to demolish your world. Another myth is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Or, now this one is so ubiquitous, I would actually have to go seriously toe-to-toe with virtually every aesthetics professor in the world. No, some would agree with me, but the junior boys and girls, the ones you find teaching in the university, would disagree with me. The ones teaching in the university, by and large, are the JV team. That's a slam on the university system, by the way. Yes, you're hearing the words right. I consider most PhD holders the main way, not all by any means. People with PhD are some of the most brilliant people in Western civilization, and people with PhD are some of the most sycophant members of Western society. Because in order to get a PhD, you have to yield and submit to extreme degrees. Frankly, that's why I don't have, part of the reason I don't have a PhD. That sounded horrible. Let's just pretend I didn't say that, okay? Anyway, beauty I don't think is primarily in the eye of the beholder. There is a great deal of subjectivity. I already said that just a few minutes ago. Of course, there's a great deal of subjectivity in how we experience this or that. And I have been on, over the decades, I've been on both sides of this, and I could be wrong right now. And in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I could change my mind again. But I sort of doubt it, but it's possible. Just admitting, right? You better admit you could be wrong, or you're an idiot. I could be wrong, so I hope I'm not an idiot. I think that beauty has an objective, corporeal reality. Now, part of the reason it's so hard to define and codify and so on is there's a whole bunch of reasons, but one of which is I believe beauty is in fact one of the many transcendent realities that, well, it's transcendent, so it's virtually unmeasurable by all the normal tools of science. I think we all experience, so the counter to that, the argument, and it's a valid, very valid argument, would be that no, there's no such thing as beauty. Beauty exists only in the heart, mind, soul of the person, say, doing the observing or having the experience. There's nothing outside them. And again, I've held that position for some time, chewed on it for quite a long time, and am now spitting it out. And I could be wrong, and it doesn't really matter if I get it wrong exactly. It's not going to change my life that much. Whoops, Hey, Janie. Good, thanks for coming back. So I've started at this last series. I started at number 20, and I'm going down to 1. For some reason, instead of starting at number 1 and going up on this particular series, I started at the top and going down. Good to have you here. I just saw something. This is very dark. This is probably the darkest area of the painting right now. And I'm trying to mix up a dark, whatever color that is right there. In fact, this is the test stroke. Ooh, beautiful. It's just about exactly right on. That means I'm going to add a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of white to that, what I just did, to make it lighter, right? No mystery there. How do you make something lighter? Well, you could add yellow ochre if you want, but you have to add something opaque to it in any case. All right, let's see if this is not quite light enough. I can hardly see it. I mean, you guys can't even see it at all, probably. If you can see anything, you're just seeing reflection, but it's glossy. All right, here's what I want to do. I have one of my vertical strokes goes right here, and I really like the fact that it completely disappears here in this dark purple area. But at the same time, I don't like the fact that it completely disappears. As I've looked at it today, I've said, oh no, it's a dead zone. That I could use a little bit of energy, just a little tiny bit of energy. And forgive me, I don't know, you guys probably can't even see this. It's kind of wastes your time if I'm doing stuff you can't see, so forgive me, but trust me. I'm going to edge it. There we go. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to edge it on both sides. All right, that is sweet right there. Again, I think you can see it. That is classic, subtle, subtle, subtle. Our eye really gets a kick out of subtlety, being lied to, being fooled, being tricked. At first glance, this is all one color, one zone. On second glance, our eye goes, oh, wait a minute. There's a real, and do you hear that when that little impulse kicks in? That, oh, wait a minute. That, in my opinion, that's one form, one style, if you will, of aesthetic pleasure. With everything that I'm doing in this last phase, last stage of painting, I am concerned about levels of energy levels. Where the energy is high and low. Where are the pockets of energy? Where are the pockets of rest? Are they in proper tension with each other? Notice I didn't say balance, because the word balance has the connotation of even Steven, equality. And almost never, in any aspect of a painting, do you want even Steven. Almost never do you want equality. You want tension and balance, tension and release, and so forth. Not balance. Balance, again, has the Like, oh, I see, your painting should be half busy and half smooth, half calm and half busy. False. Oh, I see, your painting should be half warm and half cool. False. Oh, I see, your painting should be, what else can I say? Well, should be bisected in the middle, right? You all know that one. False. So it's not a matter of balance, it's a matter of tension or ratios. Not balance. I mean, you could say the word balance, but now that, with that caveat spoken, now you understand how to take the word balance. I have a kind of about a number 4, slightly light, slightly dirty purple on my brush. So there's an area up here of slightly light and dirty purple. Not as light as was on my brush, right? You understand that, right? You would never put it in opaque. In opaque world, you never put dark on top of light. In the opaque world, you always put light on top of dark. If you want this darker, you do that with transparent, not opaque. And if that's confusing to you, hang up, so to speak. Look for my video called Mud. Just do a YouTube search for Dan Nelson Mud. I've got an 11-minute video that explains that demonstrates that quite clearly. You do not want mud. And in that video I explain what mud is. I'm having a lot of fun with this. Kind of medium light, slightly dirty purple. And again, I'm thinking we do maybe one more thing. Back to the bright red, which I still have on my palette, thank goodness, a piece of cardboard. See, I think I just realized, I think, you know what? I think the painting will be better with, I just added a lot of energy, relatively speaking, today. Quite unusual to have, such a fine and bright and intense red line all the way. Unusual doesn't matter. It's a number of other things. It doesn't matter if it's usual or unusual. All right, I think I'm ready to do the very last thing, which is some very light white, almost white highlights here, and I don't need to do much. I like it the way it is quite a bit, but just a little bit. Same thing, little Dan Nelsonism right here. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but I don't even know why I like it. I just know that I do like it. That is to say, there was a black pencil mark there. And until this a moment ago, it was sitting on top of the painting. But by painting white up to the edges of it, same thing up here. Now that black dark mark, both of these reside in the painting, not on the painting. And for some reason, that just tickles my soul. I'm not sure it tickles everybody, but I think it does. I mean, that's part of my job as an artist, is not to satisfy myself, so to speak, but is to try to anticipate how other people, how the viewer is going to respond to my painting, right? In a way, I had never thought about it. That's the antithesis of this self-expression thing. In fact, that's part of what's wrong with art is self-expression. You arrogant, self-centered SOB. What makes you think this is all about you? Right? That's how I feel about that self-expression crap. Tell us how you really feel, Dan. There you go. Just did. This is not about me. It's not about me satisfying me. This is about me satisfying you. Ooh, There we go. That's an accidental. Good definition of good art. Good art is one where the artist was not painting to satisfy himself, but selfishly to satisfy himself, but rather unselfishly to serve others. Whoa. Do unto others what you would have them do unto you. That's good art. I have no need. I mean, other people, other poor suckers who've had a hard life, we've all had a hard life. Note to humanity, life is hard. But just because you need catharsis in the form of art therapy, that's fine, that's good. I hope it works for you. It does not obligate me to look at your catharsis, right? I'm glad if your art is all about self-expression and you needed that catharsis, good. Hope it worked. I don't care to look at it. And there's some really famous, I'll go ahead and tell you, probably my least favorite artist in the 20th century. Maybe famous. And if I really worked on it, I might be able to think of some that I dislike just as much. But Willem de Kooning. Unlike most, he actually did live a decently long life. He this is kind of mean, but true. For many years, he suffered with dementia, and he continued to paint for a long time in a demented state. And you can't tell any difference in his artwork. When he had his mind and when he lost his mind, his artwork was just the same. You might think that's really sweet, but I think it's really telling. Anyway, and Willem de Kooning was at the heart of this. Art is self-expression. Garbage. I hope he had a good time. He certainly made $1 bazillion. That was not because he was a good artist, but because of the completely, what's the word, arbitrary or lucky, caprices of cultural, societal, socio-political influences. All right, I should stop babbling and just paint. All right, let's sign this thing. Yep, I'm going to use the highlight color there to sign it with. I will say, I pretty much always pick one of the highlight colors in the painting for my signature, usually. Yeah, that'll work this time. And once again, we might as well let you watch me since it's going to take a couple minutes for me to do. I think, bear with me just a minute. There we go. Continuing my rant about signatures. Where do you put it? Again, if some people want to sign it like down here, those people have issues. They are tormented. They have not accepted themselves. They have low self-esteem. They're saying to you, forgive me for breathing. I plan to leave the planet soon and let some other worthy human being take my oxygen that I have so unworthily squandered. I'm being silly, I hope you understand that. But I'm trying to mock the heck out of an inferiority complex, because an inferiority complex deserves to be mocked. The person doesn't deserve to be mocked, you understand? That the spirit, the attitude, the mindset of inferiority. So if I can whack it out of you, we're all tempted to feel that way, by the way. It's not like I have some magic formula that makes me immune. Are you kidding? No, I recognize that demon, and I spit him out. I would spit him out of you if I could. That, oh, I am unworthy, I am unworthy. Anyway, so sign it. Be a graphic designer for a minute while you're deciding where to put your signature. Think like a graphic designer. I don't care if you've never been a graphic designer. If you're a painter, you are a graphic designer. No? Yes. So place it appropriately. Most of the time, of course, in the lower right-hand corner is traditional. There are times when the painting in the lower right-hand corner is so busy that there's no room for a signature, in which case do it in the lower left-hand corner. If it's too busy in both of those places, then, I don't know, get creative. But don't sign it here where the frame would cover it up. if it were framed. All right. Ta-da! Number 17, all done. Did I show you the back? Whoops, hang on, hang on. You're still looking down at my feet, aren't you? Bear with me. Just a second. All right. Ta-da! There is no end to this, by the way. I just went, wait a minute, I want a light mark right there. Right? And too much of that can destroy painting, right? So rein it in. I'm happy with that painting. There's the back side of number 17. And these will all be posted, I hope, tomorrow. And let the auction commence. You might be wondering, well, how much should you bid? I said you can bid 1 penny if you want. I'll just go ahead and tell you, I'm proud enough of these paintings that I probably won't take $100. Okay, let's start by saying that these are pretty good paintings, and I spent pretty good time producing this, as you know. So you can bid $100. You can bid a penny if you want, and you can bid $100. But I'm not obligated to settle for that much. Okay, it's like eBay. I have a reserve. 200, probably a reasonable ballpark. All right, I'm going to start, for no discernible reason. I'm going to start again, like the way I did on the last one, with some of the accent colors. Composition of this painting, I think, is okay. There's a lot of smudgy stuff in this painting, kind of dirty, grubby stuff, and there's no way I can clean it all up. So that's just going to be one of the characteristics of this particular painting. It's a little more smudgy, and I'm just going to be okay with that. All right. But I just cleaned up that green red. I just cleaned up that green accent, making it so I'm adding quite a bit of energy by doing this, right? Being aware of energy levels and where they fall, where they're placed, all that stuff. The green that I'm doing right now is slightly bluer than the green I did over there, right? Variety. Don't do the same color in both major marks. And I'm going to do something over here. I'm using, at the moment, I'm dipping my brush, the green brush, in my favorite color for killing color. Okay, my favorite tube of paint for pushing chroma down is raw umber. And this is really funny. My favorite raw umber is student grade raw umber. Cheap raw umber. And I think the reason is because the pigment, typically, what the biggest difference between where's my spatula? Here it is. The biggest difference between high quality paint and, if you will, low quality student grade paint is pigment count. The cheap paint isn't as pungent, isn't as potent, doesn't have as much, has more filler and binder and less color in it. Literally less color. So in this case, the fact that it has less pigment serves me well because I'm using it primarily. I don't remember ever using, well, no, hang on. No, raw umber, raw umber is actually a good way to start brunette hair, dark brown hair. So there, by the way, that's an exception to my rule. I've told you, I don't usually give recipes for color. I use this color for that. I don't usually do that, but there, I just did it. So I just broke my rule. Every rule can be broken, including the ones that I'm making up, arbitrary. But other than that, I don't use raw umber as a color. I use it just as a color killer. And I think the fact that it's student grade means I don't have to be so careful. Do you follow me? When I stick my brush in it, I don't have to be careful just to get, 2 hairs in it for fear I'm picking up too much. Now I can just jab my brush in it. So anyway, that's just me. That's definitely a weird Dan Nelsonism. You do not need to follow me down that path. You can if you want to, but there's no magic. It's just kind of stupid. I like that, what I just did, that bit of opacity, again, energy, right? Just felt the need for more energy down here. And I like it so well that I want to carry it over into there. But that means I'm putting down the green brush, wiping off my green spatula. And it's just about a straight up brown. So somewhere around here, I was supposed to, I have a brown brush. But it's way too light, so let me wipe some of the light brown off this brush. And I'm dipping it in oxide red, which is brown, and my favorite color killer, which is raw umber. It needs quite a bit of red. It's a dark, cool red, so permanent rose, I think it's good for that. Again, I tell you these things not so that you can take notes. I'm just because you can't see what I'm doing, so I might as well talk. So I'm trying to match what's already here, but actually in this case, I would call it a couple ticks lighter than what's already there. Following right, this is not a little bit lighter. This is noticeably lighter. I'm following that pattern here. Again, playing with the geometric hard edge straight lines that yeah, I think I'll keep going. Look at how I'm holding the brush. Can you believe that? Tongue painting, folks, here on a large abstract painting. Can you believe it? Okay, I definitely want to fade this out. So if I just take my, let me do it. If I just take a rag and go like that, it might look okay, but probably not, because generally speaking, this fuzzy, faded out, scumbling look is not particularly attractive. So if I simply take a rag and brush it out firmly, then I get a little bit of motion in there. Let me do that again. Let me do it the right way this time. This is a good practical tip for some of you. So let's see, I sort of want to fade that out. I could take a dry brush and brush it out. But again, that creates a not terribly attractive mark. I could, of course, mix up a darker color. That would be a very valid way to handle it. In fact, let me go ahead and do that just by way of demonstration. So a little bit of oxide red, a little bit of raw umber. So now I've got a slightly darker. The danger here is I have a certain color here. Let's call that medium brown. What I have on my brush now is slightly darker than medium brown. What does that mean? Generally speaking, we don't like putting dark paint on top of light. So I'm playing dangerously. I hope you're catching the gist of the danger of this here. Now I'm going to mix up again. I just picked up some Mars Black, even. And no, it's not red enough, so the picking up some Naphthol Crimson. I use 3 reds. You old-timers know this already. Permanent Rose, which is far and away my favorite. Well, no, not far and away. It's my favorite red. Permanent Rose, Naphthol Crimson, which is a dark, deep blood red. It's dark and cool red. And then Scarlet Lake, which is a light and warm red. All right, I'm going to call that good enough. I fussed over that long enough. But just so happens now I've got just about the right color for over here. So this is a little bit unusual, isn't it? I'm taking this strip, this bar of light that was very subtle, and I'm making it much less subtle. I'm making it quite pronounced. Why? Because it looks cool, but because I think it's grounding. A lot happening up here, not much down here, so I've just added a lot down there. Okay, what I just want to do next is the red highlights in here. A lot of these paintings, this is just coincidental or ironic, or I just, this week while I've been painting this, I must have been in the mood, or last week, I just must have been in the mood for a lot of red highlights. So certainly one of the characteristics of these 20 abstracts is that there are a lot of red stripes going through stuff. So the similarities that exist within each of my, I do my abstracts almost always, I do them in sets, right? And each set, like I was just talking about this, the red stripes is one of the characteristics of this set. Each set has a number of characteristics, germane characteristic of that set. I would worry about that, so to speak, if I was stuck in a rut, so to speak, and there were strong similarities across all of my sets. Now, there is one strong similarity. I'll point that out in a second. But generally speaking, I think that's not a problem. I think there's a fair amount of variety between the different sets of abstracts that I've done. I'm going to now do some bluish green highlights up here. The one thing that is characteristic across all of my abstract paintings, and I admit this and I own it, and when I've tried to go against it, that's when I've done my worst abstract. And that is, of the 6 categories of abstract painting, one of those categories is called, I call it kinesthetic focused abstract paintings. That means dependent on the strokes, the large, typically large, bold, dominant strokes of the artist. Here's a funny one. A classic example of this is Willem de Kooning, who I just told you a little while ago was my least favorite 20th century artist, probably. He used a lot of big, bold, brash, kinesthetic marks. See, the difference between me and him, if I may be so bold, is that in his case, he was doing these big, bold, I mean, he literally, and nothing, I'm not criticizing this part, but he literally, often, more than once, stabbed holes, literal holes in his canvases with whatever tool he was using. He hit it so hard that he actually drove right through the canvas. Again, that doesn't bother me. I mean, that's weird, but it doesn't bother me. See, the difference between he and I, if you will, besides that he's a bazillionaire, dead bazillionaire, and uber famous. Again, that's for socio-political reasons, not for artistic reasons. Is that he was doing bold, strong strokes as a means of expressing himself. Do you see? I'm not doing big, bold strokes to express myself. It makes me laugh. Like, are you kidding? Anyway, let's let's continue here. A few light highlights then. Not many. I'm not gonna. There's a lot going on here. I think I do want to clean up some of the stuff down here. It would be real easy for this kind of action, what I'm doing right now, for my painting to get over dotified. Too many dots, too many little dots, right? That'd be very easy. And if that happens, then I have to go through the much more difficult process that we call de-dotification. That's almost just about right, though, I think. Almost. I'm going to smudge out the way I was describing earlier. Smudge out not so much just by smudging, but by making bold marks, and thus, in effect, creating a fade out, if you will, without making an ugly mark. Ooh, that was nice. Let me do another one. That was nice, too. All right, so yeah, I've just done my own de-dotification right there. Though some of my regular viewers, we have long history. This is, after all, Daily Art Adventure number 971. Yes, indeed, that does mean that I have done 970 broadcasts. This is number 970. So we have history, and this some of our dialogue has turned pretty funny over the years, and that's one of those, the de-dotification. I didn't make that up on the spot. All right, I'm going to do right in between these two dark pencil lines. I'm doing some. That's nice. Look at it. What's nice? That's nice. Okay, everything an artist does is a guess. I say, I think it'll look good if. And again, I like telling you beginners, you early journey painters, I like telling you this because I know you tend to think that you're the one, that you are taking guesses, and that good painters know exactly what each mark is, the effect of each mark. And in fact, that's what I call bad painting, is if you know exactly. That's controlled painting, hyper-controlled, nothing transcendent. The hyper-realist gang, they know, quote-unquote, what every stroke's going to do, and that's why their paintings are so bad. Nothing magic happened. In the course of the painting. That's nice. That's really nice. I just did that mark, and it kind of talks to this one. Creates and again, of course, increase the energy, which is good. This whole area was really kind of plain. I mean, we got these marks and this, which is really important. But anyway, I just increased the energy up there. Ooh, you know what? I want to keep painting, but I think wisdom is yelling at me, no, quit. I'm really quite happy with how I managed that bit. I got the dots of light without dotification. Quite happy with that. And how this talks to that up there. There's lots of areas of rather subtle, dark texture throughout this entire painting. Nothing wrong with, large, dark, subtle areas. It's tension, it's balance. Again, ratio. Balance is not a good word because that makes you think even Steven. No, this painting. All right, let me give you an overall. This is a calm painting with busy areas. Every painting, I'm going to give you a list of these right now. Every painting should be either mostly calm with some busy areas, or mostly busy with some calm areas. Never 50-50. breadth. Every painting should be mostly warm with some cool areas, or mostly cool with some warm areas. Never 50-50. Every painting should be mostly dark with some, are you getting this? Getting the pattern? Every painting should be mostly dark with some light areas, or mostly light with some dark areas. Never 50-50. All right? What else? Texture, color, value, and then beyond that, you could get too refined. So what is this painting? Number one, mostly dark, light areas. Number two, mostly calm with busy areas. Number three, mostly warm with cool areas, right? That doesn't mean it's a great painting. It just means it follows those rules. So the greater chance of it being a good painting. It's easy to tell when a painting is bad and why it's bad than it is to tell why a good, hey, let me say that again. It's easier to see, but the principle, the elements of design and the principles of design, I was saying last week, are all post priori. They're not, a bunch of Greek philosophers didn't gather together 2,500 years ago and say, hey, what do you say we make up the elements of design? Hey, while we're at it, let's make up the principles of design. Of course not. That's ridiculous. What did happen, I wasn't there, but I do know that the elements of design are post priori. That is to say, they're after the fact, after it happened. So human beings start making marks, cave paintings, tomb paintings, whatever the case may be. In other words, they start making art. And lo and behold, some of the art that some of the human beings make, their fellow human beings get a kick out of looking at it. Theodore, he had a knack for making paintings that nobody cared for. You know Theodore. You've known some of those. You went to school with one of those. He had a knack for making every painting bad. Not interesting. You don't know what was bad about it, but it just didn't look good. All right, I'm being silly. Conversely, there were some paintings, Aphrodite on the half shell, Venus. There were some those are sculptures, but anyway, never mind. There were some paintings that people liked looking at, and after much thought, chin scratching, and analysis, they said, you know what's funny? We've discovered that all the paintings that have these characteristics, people like looking at. The paintings that lack these characteristics, not so much. People just don't seem to enjoy looking at them so much. So that's what became our list of the elements of design, which are the building blocks. There, I didn't even rant about signature, did I? The building blocks, if you will, that are of composition of design. So there's painting number 16, moving right along. Did I tell you that even though I'm painting less than 5% of the canvas, this is the slowest? This is the final edit. Little paint, big difference, in other words. So the elements of design are the building blocks. Principles of design, much less defined, much less codified. Lots of variance of opinion. Doesn't matter. The principles of design is what you do with the building blocks. But the building blocks are, my list, line, shape, color, value, composition, and texture. I usually say design, but then that's confusing because I'm listing the elements of design, and in the elements, one of the elements of design is design. So when I say design, in that case, in the second case, I mean spatial, the way it's laid out. So maybe composition. You could even say layout. Fine, fine, fine. There are other people who add form and shape. I disagree with those. I think form and shape are a subset. The two of them combined are a subset of composition and should be left thus. I think some people say the form is the illusion of 3 dimension. Well, in which case abstract paintings are left out in the cold, because I'm not trying to create any sense of shape of a 3-dimensional space. even though your eye turns this into, you probably feel like this light is further back and the dark is up close, probably. Anyway, so there you go. That's review. I know we do it all the time. Let's be done here. That's painting number 16. If you buy painting number 16, you get 2 sides. You can do whatever you want with the second side, okay? I see all these over here leaning up. So let me pick you up for a second and just point you over there just for fun. So there's our hallway, by the way. And there's the first 5 paintings. And from a distance, especially en masse, looking at them all together, I will tell you, I like these paintings. In my humble opinion, I think these are good abstract paintings. I think they are. All right, that's number 16, so we're down to 15. Yahoo! I'm not going to broadcast me doing all 20. I mean, the broadcast would be 3 hours long. So I'm not going to do the hang on. I'm going to get you pointed in the right direction in just a second. Anybody saying anything that I'm missing? Yeah. Hello, Indranil Biswas. Thank you very much for your comment. Good to have you on board. Hello, Ani Sommer. Good to have you here. And there's TRC 450 again. TR, was that you that had that funny comment earlier? Oh, that was somebody else. That was Tony Hart. You got some comedians on with us today. That's great. TRC 450 says, sign the center for confidence. If you're really confident, put your signature right in the middle. Ahmed Ali, I know the audio is better because I'm not trying to broadcast on Facebook, which is unfortunate for me because there are a lot of people that just don't watch YouTube. They only watch Facebook, so too bad. All right, I like this painting. A clear, obvious, manifest weakness in this painting is that I've got the great majority of high energy is right smack dab in the middle of the painting, all right? I'm not panicking because I've got one more layer to go. This painting I think is a little bit like number 20 that I wasn't broadcasting when I did 20, that needed more arm wrestling. I think this is the same, that the real fundamental composition of this painting needs a little more heavy lifting or reworking. But even as I say that, I'll tell you, it's going to be quite easy. All I need, and by the way, there's a fair amount of energy up here, which helps. So even though great energy here, quite a bit here, so that pulls it up. But I think it's going to be fairly easy to decentralize some of. I don't want to undo it. The highest energy of this painting is still going to be here. That's okay. But there has to be sufficient energy elsewhere so that it doesn't feel like a donut hole. This is almost a classic donut hole, almost, except that with the shaft of light and energy goes up here and off the canvas. So, so it is tethered, if you will. So you have donut holes when you have high energy and low energy all around it. Well, I've never said it that way before. So somebody write that down. A donut hole is high energy, which often is, in fact, if you're doing a portrait of a person, their face, high energy, and dead all around it. So the great portrait painters found ways to tether, to connect the high energy, in my opinion. Another classic is you're doing a painting of your grandma's farmhouse. Boom. Farmhouse, sky, trees, grass. Bad painting. Okay. I do cityscapes all the time, and of course, a bad donut hole is building. So what I almost always do is tall building goes a little bit off the top of the canvas. All right, that's just sidelights. All right, let me think about how to fix this most easily. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this little bit of architectural or geometric hard edge, horizontal, vertical, which, by the way, if you missed my earlier broadcast, that was done on phase 8. So that was the very last thing that I did before the final phase 9. And it was quite a surprise. I didn't know throughout the entire painting, 20 paintings, I did not know that I was going to incorporate these, again, what I like to call architectural elements. Straight lines, horizontal 90-degree, vertical, horizontal marks. That was a surprise to me. I did it on painting number 1. I messed around with painting number 1 for several minutes. I was not on camera when I was doing this. I'm messing around. The assignment, the name of phase 7 was dark details. So I knew I was going to do dark stuff. I didn't know what kind of dark stuff I was going to do. I also, by the way, on phase 7, I did things like darkened several corners, darkened areas. I probably made all of this darker on phase 7. All of this made it darker, which made the overall composition pop, made it a little bit hotter, if you will. More pronounced to be a good word there. Okay, more of the same here. Gonna make slightly greener. I'm sorry, slightly bluer green down here on my palette, and again, the use of the, I'm calling this a palette knife, you understand. The use of the palette knife, especially applied this way, using the flat edge of the blade, creates a texture that doesn't really exist anywhere else on the painting. That flat. Maybe you can see I used the same tool, by the way, in the early stages of the acrylic. So that's where all this impasto comes from. That's from early stages of acrylic, and I love it. I'm so glad that I did this impasto. And while I'm on the subject, let's zoom in here a little bit. So you can see one of the benefits of doing an oil glaze. One of the questions I asked myself many times, why do I need to do an oil glaze? Couldn't I just finish the painting in acrylics? Of course I could, but no, it's much, much stronger finished in oil. Part of the reason is because I can do these beautiful, perfectly transparent glazes, whatever color I want, and I put it on quite heavy and then wipe it off with a rag, so I get this, you can see the yellowish brownish, looks like a burnt sienna glaze is still stuck in the cracks. See, it's beautiful. So that's one of many reasons. I came up with, I think, 8 reasons for doing oil glaze. Okay, some of the overall project that I'm working on right now. I'm still working on pulling focus, using a theater term. Focus, pulling focus. So I'm making higher energy over here, so that the tension, so that I don't have a donut hole. High energy, negative all around. So I'm going to make energy go away from the center, and I've accomplished that already quite a bit, quite nicely up here. And I'm not bragging. That's right. When an artist says that, it means Yahoo! It worked. I hope you understand that. With every stroke, I'm taking a guess as to what I think the effect of this or that stroke is going. I go inside my head. I go, I think it'll look good if I do this, that, or thus and so, and then I do it. And then sometimes I go, it didn't work as good as I thought. Right? Right? Let's be honest. And then other times you go, ooh, that worked pretty well. So I look at this up here and go, ooh, that actually worked quite well. Do you understand? That's good art process. That's not bragging, and I want you to know the difference. Doesn't mean I'm above bragging or being boastful. I slip into that in my darker moments. But just because I say, ooh, that looks good, I am not in one of those dark moments. All right, the next thing that's calling to me, and I don't know what order I'm going to do this, but there are sub tones of purple purple, violet purple in here. I'm really liking it. It's kind of a dirty purple, so I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to go with you know what I mean by dirty, right? There's a clean, beautiful, pretty, you know, elementary school purple, and then whatever you add to that to make it less pure is what I call dirty. I use that term a lot. You probably know that already. So it's going to be quite clean compared to what's already there, but it's actually not a terribly clean purple. It's got some impurities in it. Green, for instance. Yes. I see another place for a painting edge. By the way, there are a couple ways to put paint. One is to rub it on your palette, but sometimes there's not room on your palette because there's too many other colors close to it. So you just take a brush and rub it on there. See, a very different feel of a mark than if it had been done. You know, why are you doing it with cardboard? Why are you doing it with a straight edge? Variety, variety, variety. Feels different. And different is almost always good. Why? Because variety is one of the highest values, is the way I like to put it. One of the most important principles of design is variety. We don't like to see the same thing over and over and over. We, human beings, not talking about artists, no, human beings, we don't like to see the same thing over and over. Left to our own devices, all things being equal, many times all things are not equal, but all things being equal, in broad terms, human beings would rather see, I like to say it in a strange way to make the point, our eyes would rather see yes color than no color. What I'm really saying is more than less. But yes, we'd rather see color. Yes. The answer is not no. The answer is yes, we'd like to see color. Number two, all things being equal, our eyes would rather see yes color than no color. Our eyes would rather see yes values than no values. What I'm saying there is, all things being equal, we'd rather see a wide range. We'd rather see everything from black to white and everything in between. And every time I say that, I'm going to say it again. Every time I say that quote, I think of Ansel Adams, the photographer, American photographer, second half of the 20th century. I think it was second half. His prints, and just Google Ansel, A-N-S-E-L, Ansel Adams, Yosemite. His black, I think all of his photography was black and white. He worked with large format, like 8 by 10 inch negative, I believe. You can see him with, one of those old cameras with the black cloth is over his head. He's inside looking through a box. That's what he looked like when he was shooting photographs. But his black and whites are just to die for. I mean, just breathtaking. And by the way, just for what it's worth, how did, all things being equal, our eyes would rather see yes value, that is velvet black to sunshine white and everything in between. Okay, and that's, as I said, every time I say that, I think of an Ansel Adams. Like an array of light bulbs behind his, in his darkroom, behind his film as he was developing or whatever. That's all I know about it. I'm getting dangerously outside of my area of expertise. But anyway, let's get back to this painting. Well, the human eye would rather see. Now, see, there are times when all things are not equal. Let me give you an example. I happen to be one of those weird characters who actually has a taste for gloomy, monochromatic, misty, foggy drawings or paintings, right? And not everybody does. I do. So, and what I'm saying is, all things are not always equal. There is a place for muted color and muted values. There is. But again, the norm is, I wouldn't want to live in a world. It was like one of those paintings. Does that make sense? Looking at a painting is one thing. No, we're living right now today on, this is September 15th in central North Carolina. And this morning, for the first time really since last spring, it was like 66 degrees outside. And I think about my days growing up in Michigan by this time. In fact, I'm glad I thought about this. Summer of 1976, I was helping coach the cross-country team in Petoskey, Michigan. Of all the places I've lived, my favorite for pure aesthetics. And our first cross-country meet was today, September 15th, and it snowed. And it was not a nice Currier and Ives, fluffy snowflakes at all. These guys are out there running in their, shorts and jersey shirt, sleeveless jerseys. It was freezing. Oh man, hang on. I need to think about painting for a minute. This gray stripe right here, I'm wondering about. Yeah, it's okay, but I'm thinking to add color to it. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to green. I'm gonna try to tie in this palette over here. Anyway, September 15th, so I'm just laughing. Anyway, today was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So my point, how I got on that subject, boy, do I have the ability to go off. All things being equal, our eyes really enjoy wide variety. And that's worth saying because some elements in the art world, of which people I speak, sort of deny that human beings really do get a kick out of color. See, this even though I'm an abstract painting here. In fact, oh boy, I don't know if I should tell this story or not. Oh, sure, what the heck, I will. A couple years ago now, I gave a lecture. I was invited to give a presentation to an arts organization in my part of the country. And what the heck, I decided to go for the jugular. I decided to talk about the 20th century art establishment and my disagreements with it. I don't think you can't imagine I would actually do such a thing. I'm being facetious. All you regulars said you would. Well, I did. I threw caution to the wind. And by way of example, I took 4 of my paintings with me. One, I think it was my pretty hyper-realistic still life you can find on my website called Learn How to Draw. And it's pretty hyper-realistic still life. And I took one of my normal abstract realist cityscapes. Those of you who don't know what I mean by abstract realism, they're very representational, but there's no question, even though I call them abstract realist, they're very tight, accurate, not tight, they're accurate, realistic paintings. But they're abstract because the line, shape, color, design, value, texture, the marks themselves are paramount, are more important than the picture. All right, so I took one of those, and then I took one of these abstracts. And then finally, I did what the devious side of me has always wanted to do. I picked up one of my drop cloths from the floor of my studio I was using as a drop cloth at that time. Piece of canvas, and I cut it out and I stretched and put it on a stretcher. Okay, so I had 4. Hyper-realistic, quite realistic impressionist, totally non-objective abstract, and then a drop cloth, an ugly drop cloth. That had been walked on and spattered on and dropped on, and all the normal stuff that happens to a drop cloth. Okay, where was I going? Why did I start this story? I started poking on. I said, even these paintings. All right, so I remember now why I started. First of all, most people were kind of understood most of what I was getting at, because I was trying to make a point that there was a range of values. I don't mean colors, and I don't mean financial values, but that not all these paintings were equal, even though they all were good. Ostensibly, arguably, I wasn't bragging. I'm just saying they were all could be argued to be, good paintings. But that there was a range of intrinsic, what's the word I'm looking for? Some kind of value. Well, you can imagine how that went over. Most of the people were tracking with me and agreeing with me. There were a couple of people who felt a little bit irked. This doesn't matter, but in this case, just so you have the picture right, they happen to be women, and older than me women. And they were kind of upset. I knew this might happen, of course. I knew I was being a, what, but here, one of the women, two of the women maybe, they would not, for the life of them, they would not let go of their thesis. What happened to my sound? Uh-oh. All right. I think, whoops, no, hang on. Let me try to get the sound coming through. I know there's some sound right now, but let's try to get it. Hello. All right. Doggone it. I just uncovered one of the problems. So for some reason, evidently the sound card or something like that on this phone is defunct. Darn it. All right, but I think I'm back. I'll find out in just a minute. So I was telling you about, and I haven't said anything. I heard as soon as my phone went dead, I stopped talking, so we didn't miss anything. So I was giving a presentation, a lecture, to an arts community, art association, not far from me, and I was telling you, I took 4 paintings. One hyper-realistic still life, one my normal cityscape, number 3, one of these abstracts like this, and number 4, a piece of drop cloth. And first of all, there was one woman there in particular, 2 maybe, who, for the life of them, they would not yield. They would not yield. They insisted with somewhat of an attitude, I must say. They insisted that my drop cloth painting was every bit as valuable, every bit as good, every bit as praiseworthy, every bit of as intrinsic value as my hyper-realistic, anything. Let me stop there for a second. I consider such behavior. Now, listen, please understand, I did not hate my drop. I did not hate my abstract, my drop cloth paint, all right? It had a certain charm, but I will admit that I made a little mistake. I did make a little mistake when I cut it out and put it on the frame. I did put the highest energy at the 1/3 point, so I made a mistake of, even though it was a drop cloth, of framing it in such a way that I couldn't help it, and that was a mistake. I should have avoided that, because that created some confusion, because there was a tiny bit of intentional man-made aesthetics reflected in the drop cloth. But anyway, they would not yield. They insisted that my drop cloth painting was every bit as good, valuable, noteworthy, praiseworthy, and so on and so forth. On a hierarchy of values, it was not one speck lower than any of the others, all right? Let me just tell you, I consider such an attitude to be truly culturally inculcated insanity. I mean, no human being on the planet, except one deeply infected by the disease of the art establishment of the 20th century. No self-respecting, breathing human being on the planet would agree with them. But because of the influence of, again, the art establishment, quote unquote, that means the universities, the municipal art associations, and so on and so on and so forth, it was the reason for their opinion. And again, I call that a culturally inculcated insanity. But the point I really want to make, as if that wasn't bad enough, by the same token, these same two women, bless their little, bless their little crusty hearts, they did not like my abstract paintings at all. Like, you know, I had one like this, and I was careful to pick one that I thought was quite fetching. I picked one, you know, one that I thought was very successful, and they did not care for it at all. Of course, they didn't care for my representational stuff either, but one woman in particular was very telling. She pointed at my representational painting with just a, forgive me, but this is true, with a literal snarl on her face, on her visage. with an undiminished expression of scorn on her face. She pointed at my lovely abstract painting, and it said, "It looks like an abstract that a realist painter would do." By which I understood her to mean that my abstract painting was beautiful and she hated beautiful paintings. Oh my goodness. How did I get into that? Well, I can't remember. It was a good story though, wasn't it? And just as I'm doing that story, it dawns me, you know what? Again, I'm trying to pull the energy somewhat, not entirely, of course, but somewhat to a degree from the dead center, if you will, of this painting. Now, you know, now I am going to put on your seatbelt. I'm going to be arrogant for a minute. Okay, so I've warned you. Don't look for anything else. If you look for humility in the next few minutes, you will be bitterly disappointed. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but still. There's some other things I know about these women. They were both artists. They were both painters. And there's some things that you know about them too, without me even saying anything about it. Number one, of course, they had degrees. Probably, I don't know that that's true. I'm making that part up. But you know good and well, as I do, neither one of them can draw a lick. Neither one of them can realist draw their way out of a paper sack. Neither one of them had any what all of human beings throughout all of history would have called art skill. Neither one of them had it, and I do believe that is an issue and that is a problem. And I do not approve of that condition. Now that doesn't mean that people can't be successful and happy and effective who can't draw. Quite the contrary. I mean, look I'm doing an abstract. I'm doing a non-objective painting, and I like it. I'm trying to do a good one. Okay, so you can't say, "Oh, you're just a realist who doesn't like abstract painting." Duh. I've done more than you, probably. Even if you're a full-time abstract painter, there's a good possibility I have more published abstracts than you do. Now about 300. That's just the ones that are on my Facebook. Anyway, okay. And like I said, I'm being arrogant. Anyway, let's get off that and get on to something else a little more edifying. But you know good and well, neither of them could draw a lick, and I do think that's an issue. I do think that's not a healthy condition for an artist. Oh, I was saying that yes, you can be a happy and effective artist doing nothing but non-objective stuff. So, but that was not their situation. They were kind of mad as hail. Being a theological term, Mom, if you're listening. Theological term. They were mad as hail. That I could draw and they couldn't, and that I was putting a higher value, or ostensibly trying to claim that there was a higher value on some of my representational stuff. Whew, all right, let's have I just irritated the heck out of everybody? It's very possible. Welcome back. All right, so I've been I've been painting and jabbering for quite a while here. Have I pulled? No, I haven't quite. Have I pulled enough focus? That's a term I'm not sure I've ever used before. It's theologic. It's a theater, not theological term. It's a theater term. Pulling focus. Hello, Redina. I kept my, of course, I kept my drop cloth meeting. And again, see, the part of the irony is, you see, I'm sorry, you got me going again. I'm not angry at my drop cloth painting. I don't hate it. I'm not angry at it. It's kind of fun to look at. By the same token, you know, a pile of dirt dumped by a backhoe of a guy digging a ditch is fun to look at. And I'm not desecrating my painting, I'm elevating the pile of dirt. I mean, life is good, existence is good, reality is good. In fact, that is the real difference between me, say, and the attitudes demonstrated by these women who are not here to defend themselves. Of course, I haven't identified them too closely either. So, but the difference between them and me is really, I've accidentally backed into it. Philosophically, the difference between them and me is to see, I think all of creation, all of the universe, all of existence actually is worthy of praise and gratitude and thanksgiving and is good. See, and that's the real difference between me and the Art Academy. And that's the real difference why the card-carrying members of the art establishment would despise my paintings, because in that, my paintings do reflect. I don't do them to express myself, but myself is in fact accidentally expressed in my paintings, okay? And what you can tell from my paintings, this is a great time to talk about it. Let me tell you what you can tell from my paintings. And I'm going to be kind of philosophical and kind of literal at the same time. What you can tell from my paintings is that I think, I'm going to start anywhere, I believe red is real. Now, those of you who are not familiar with the philosophy department, you don't know what in the world I mean by that. But I believe red is real and worthy of praise, if you will. Forgive me, you don't have to go in a religious direction. I'm not suggesting you don't have to believe that any kind of deity created red. All I'm saying is that red is real. Now, the philosophy department, see, the philosophy professors would disagree with me on that very point. And see, I disagree with them. The difference between me and them is I'm an artist, they're not, unless they're an artist. But they're a philosophy professor, and they would say to me, well, you're not a professor, and I would say, oh, yes, I am. They would say, you're not a philosopher, and I would say, oh, yes, I am. And in fact, you are a corrupted philosopher because you've lost your wits due to your adherence to the latest, greatest teaching from the academy. All right, now I'm getting just plain nasty. Anyway, so what you can tell about from just my paintings is that I think red is real. In fact, I think that every color on this canvas is real. And line, shape, design, value, and texture are all real. I mean, some of you are saying, what are you talking about? Well, you obviously have never been part of the philosophy department, because every philosopher listening to me, which is probably zero, is saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, they're not real. Okay, so just to let you know, I'll expose the philosophy department to that extent, that they would disagree with me vehemently. How can you say that? How can you say that? all you can be sure of is that your experience of that color is real. That's as far down that path as I want to go, voicing their arguments. But I know their arguments. I've read their arguments, and I disagree with them vehemently. No, so the line is real, color, shape, design, value, texture is real. I am real. This is real. By hook or by crook, I have eyeballs in my head that allow me to experience the reality of these colors, and all of these things together converge in me and create in me, again, by hook or by crook, by some caprice of nature or supernature, they have combined in me to create a grateful creature. I'm thankful for all these colors. That is what you see in all of my paintings. And in fact, why I'm not angry at my drop cloth painting. Why? Because it was real too. I don't mean it was a real drop cloth. No, I mean the colors and the texture and everything out was real. It was great fun to look at. It was. But that doesn't mean it, on the hierarchy of values, that it has the same level of value as, say, this painting does. Clearly, I do not believe that. In fact, I don't believe that my abstract paintings on a sort of, like I'm talking here, kind of like on a caveman-ish level of hierarchy of values. I don't believe that my abstract paintings have the same level of value as my representational paintings. It doesn't mean they're not good. I hope they're good. I hope they're valuable. But the fact that I can do 20 of these in 1 week shows you something. Shows you something. I told you before, I kind of to make the point about 4 or 5 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, I did 100 abstract paintings in a long weekend at a festival. 100 abstract paintings in 4 days. Partly to make the point that even though I think they're good and valuable, again, my favorite language is on the hierarchy of values. They do not come to the level. Doesn't mean they're not worth doing. Doesn't mean they're not worth buying. Doesn't mean they're not worth looking at. They are. That's part of the reason why I feel like I can sell them to you for $200 instead of one of my representational paintings of this size would be, I forget, somewhere around $2,000. All right? All right. Let's get off the heavy. Shall we? Anybody saying, hello, Aureli Barajas. Hello, David. They're exactly right, Dina. Hello, Susan. Hello, David, and all of you. All right, I'm just about finished. I've accomplished essentially what I set out to do here. We can talk a little bit more of that slightly lighter green right here. I've set out to do mostly what I wanted to do, which was pull the energy. There was too much energy right in the center of this painting. And from the outset, I said, okay, what I have to do is I have to pull some energy out. And I've done it. I did it first up here by light green, and then purple here, red down here, and then this dark aqua down here, and then actually gray, straight up gray, purple gray up there, and blue. So you see there's a lot more. Now it doesn't bother me. I'm not quite finished. I'm going to do a little bit more. But I think I'm out of the woods, I would say, on this one. That, okay, I've really accomplished what needed to be accomplished. Pulling energy away from the center. I feel like, yeah, okay, here we go. This right down here. Again, as you hear, the word, the concept of energy is one of the most helpful to me as I'm designing, if you will, these abstract paintings in particular. Now, let me also say, and it sounded a minute ago like I was perhaps denigrating abstract painting by saying it doesn't have to come up to the same hierarchy of values as a representational. Let me say this: I don't want to ruin anybody's day. I don't never want to ruin anybody's day. But there is a very real sense in which if you can't do a good abstract, literal term, non-objective painting, if you can't do a good non-objective painting, then you can't do a good objective painting either. Again, like I said, I don't want to ruin anybody's day, because some of you might be fantastic artists and you just hate abstracts and never been able to do good ones. And that's okay, and I can understand. I hope that though you might recognize that your hatred of abstract is not a feature and a characteristic of your excellent art as it is a weakness. You know, like I've talked about the fact that I don't like pink or bright yellow is a weakness, not a feature of mine, not a characteristic of mine. I consider it to be a deficit, and that's why I very often intentionally will put those colors, arbitrarily put those colors into my paintings because I don't like them. All right, so if you're unable to do abstract, that's all right, that's all right. That's simply a growth area for you. It's an area you could if you should. You should if you could grow in it. And I believe it quite much, that if you can't do good abstract painting, then you can't do good representational painting. Why? Because with the abstract painting, all you have is the magical mystery wonders of, ooh, that was a nice mark, of abstraction. All you have is elements of design: line, shape, color, design, value, texture, and the principles. That's all you've got to work with. There's no picture. And what makes a representational painting good is, in fact, all those same things: line, shape, color, design, value, texture. All right, now that and this painting has taken somewhat longer, by the way. I mentioned that when I got started. I said this one's going to take a little bit more heavy lifting to get it fixed. But I also said it wouldn't be hard. It wasn't. It was quite fun, in fact. But it took a while. So I've got more energy everywhere, which now makes us more comfortable with this much energy in the center, and it's not so much in danger of being a donut hole. Now, most of my paintings, I'm finishing by doing light highlights in the highlight area. Yep. And I'm very carefully, I was very much considering not doing that on this painting, but I just decided, yes, I'm going to continue that, although it's going to be much subtler. So I'm trying to match that color right there, which I think is kind of a very pale orange green. Can you let me call it such a strange color as orange green? Let me see if I'm close. Oh, dead on. Lucky. I mean that, by the way. I mean, sure, if you're a good artist, you could probably match colors better than a beginner. That's an understatement. But doesn't mean, I mean, you saw me earlier today, perhaps, if you watched me earlier. You saw me mess up in mixing some colors. Miss it by a mile. And that's normal. So I'm glad to say to you, when I get one perfect, I called it lucky. Okay? And I'm sorry that you're not getting regular sound from a microphone. Can't be helped. I'll fix that later. I'm operating on a backup phone right now because my battery died on my regular. So I'm just doing a little bit, and I'm playing my typical Dan Nelson trick of using the light opaque paints to paint right up to some dark lines that were added late in the painting process. Does that make sense? And again, that's just a crazy meism. I think it looks cool, and I think I'm not missing my guess too far. That I think most people, even though they don't know what it is that's affecting them, they enjoy it as well. I think that's enough of that. I'm going to switch now to this a little bit more mustardy color. There we go. I had a transparent oxide yellow paint. I don't even know where I got it. And it just dawned on me, wait a minute, I think that's the color I want right now. And then a tiny bit more green added to that. Let's see if I'm close. I lucked out twice in one 10-minute period. I lead a charmed existence. Now, I want to make sure, by the way, when I say I matched it, it can be, if it's a perfect match, that's okay, but it cannot be slightly darker. It has to be either a perfect match or, even better, preferably, slightly lighter than what's there. And I think I'm just highlighting some of this, adding a little bit of energy. Of course, you understand the irony here. Now I'm adding energy back into the very center of this painting, which I just spent a good 20 or 25 minutes undoing, right? Pulling energy. But no, I'm not being inconsistent. Having successfully solved the donut hole problem. By the way, I came up with a definition for donut hole earlier this morning I've never had before. Donut hole is high energy in the middle, completely surrounded by too low of an energy. Okay, too high in the middle, too low all the way outside. That's a donut hole. But having now remedied that by adding energy all the way out here, now I can. It's actually okay for me to come back here in the center, and in fact increase the energy just a little bit, right where I want it. Okay. And as you can see, this is pretty much a little bit painting. Okay, there's just one mark that I've got down here that I don't know where it came from, but I don't like it. It's a smudge. Smudges are iffy, okay? That's a good thing to keep in mind. Smudges are and even that's a smudge, what I just did and with my second stroke. But let me see if I can fix it. One way to try to fix it is not to rub it out like this. That will create a mega smudge, but is to instead and the answer is no. That still didn't quite fix it, but that did. Why? Because those are interesting marks. Uncle 60. What's the minimum bid? I honestly, okay, so I talked about this a little bit. I haven't set one yet. Yeah, I said you can bid a penny if you want. I just won't sell it to you. I'm thinking, and forgive me, so this whole experiment may end up being a complete bomb because maybe nobody will buy the paintings. And I'm kind of okay with that because I know that these are good paintings. So I don't mind having them on hand in my attic because the day will come when the stars will align and there will be a market moment for my paintings. And all I'm saying is, so if I don't sell them at a decent price, that's okay. I'm thinking $200-ish is about right. That means if you want a minimum bid of $150, I might sell it to you. If I sold all my paintings for $100, I would make $2,000 for 2 weeks of work. Maybe you can pay your bills. I'm sorry, we're getting a little too personal here, aren't we? Maybe you can pay your bills on $1,000 a week, but I can't. I'd be going broke if I and forgive me, I'm getting a little bit too much information there, but now you know. So, if I sold them for an average of 150, I'd make 3,000. It's like, okay, well, I sure didn't make a lot of money, but I paid my bills, broke even, so to speak. So I guess that's my answer. This is the most I've delved into the prices yet, Uncle. I did say earlier too that part of the feeling I have is all my abstracts in the last 10 years have always been done in blitzes like this, assembly line. And this is, I think, the 5th time I've done a whole bunch of abstracts all at one time. This time it's 20. A fairly moderate, although there's 20 on the back too, so 40 in the last 3 weeks. But I will say that I think these 20 are my best yet. So I'm quite happy. I am not disappointed. And that's not always the case. You artists all know that. Your latest is not always your greatest. But hallelujah, sometimes it is. And that's the way I feel. It's a very different way to think, isn't it? Abstract or non-objective painting. Very different animal. Your brain has to do something quite different. And so as I said, I'm rather much enjoying, stand you back up for a second, rather much enjoying exercising my brain in this alternate way. I think I've done I posted it on YouTube not long. I think I've done 33 portraits since the middle of March. Portraits. The opposite end of the spectrum from this. And again, exercising your brain. It's very different. This, as I look at it now, slightly fresh eyes, it has a lot of dark outline edges that feels like a stained glass window to me. And something wrong in my brain. I have always kind of enjoyed that effect, that kind of hard edge outline. Looks like a stained glass window. Yeah. Yahoo. So I think I should end this broadcast because I'm just going on forever and ever and ever. Oh man. Speaking of stained glass windows, oh man. All right, and here's number 14. Yahoo. I like it. I like the palette. So the last one was decidedly cool. This one's decidedly warm. This, I'm going to end the broadcast here shortly. Redina, you live on 12 Canadian a month. Yes, my dear. I have 9 people in my house. No, I'm not paying for all of them, but I'm paying something for all of them. We all live a different situation, don't we? And I'm not complaining, believe me. Anyway, this painting was considerably helped with phase number 8, which was dark details, which maybe you were here, maybe you weren't, turned into. I added this, what I like to call architectural element on every single painting. Some of them have 1 line, some have 2, like this one, some have 3, none of them have 4. It's either 1, 2, or 3. I would do 4 if it worked, but none of them called for 4. So this painting, if you took this away, it's just, all the energy's here, and that's okay, off center, but too empty over here. So in my opinion, that structure helped considerably. So I don't feel like I have to do, let's see how that looks. Oh yeah, actually, sorry about that. You see, I'm not going to paint that way, but you can see a little bit better. I don't feel like I have to do a ton of reworking or heavy lifting on this one to make it work. The composition is quite satisfactory. So I'll be doing the usual. I will be bumping, if you will, the spots of the secondary and tertiary colors, the highlights. There's some definitely purple is one of the, and the aqua blue, aqua green, whichever you want to call it, and red. Those are all 3 highlight spot colors. And beyond that, I don't really know what I'm going to do, so we'll just all have to find out. But some of you got to watch me do, as you can see, this last layer is taking longer than any of the others, I believe. Not surprising, pretty typical. But I do thank you for your company and your comments. And 4 people and your cats, and 4 are cats. 5 people, 4 cats. Bless you. Here's some ugly smudges that I don't care for much down here. So I think I'm probably going to clean that up with some, mix up some of this brownish orange color and pop some hard edges in there. Again, this painting, I think the disbursement of energy is quite satisfactory. No question, this is the highest energy right there, and that's placement is okay, so I don't have to like do anything. It's just other things. Whew. All right, thanks. Thanks for your company again. I appreciate it very much, and we'll see. I'd love to make some money selling them. I'd love to send them all to good homes where they'll be enjoyed for centuries to come by you and your great grandchildren. Be that as it may, we won't get too big for our britches, will we? No, we will not. All right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.